All right, and we're live. Good to see you. If we haven't met yet, my name is Darren Stott, pastor at Eden, founder of Supernaturalist Ministries, author of 3 books. Our newest one, we're super excited about it. It's called Unapologetically Supernatural. You can pick it up on Amazon. God's doing amazing things on the earth. He is using his church. So there's a lot of great things that are happening in the church of Jesus Christ, especially in our country. People are being awakened in this time to the good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what I'm all about. I'm a huge fan of Jesus, okay? And I believe in his church. And there's a lot taking place right now, especially within the culture, within church culture. And yesterday, things were blowing up, especially I woke up and my text messages were blowing up. I had DMs, instant messages involving a Stronger Men's conference, okay? And Mark Driscoll, Pastor Mark, who confronted what they were doing there. And then the pastor of the event, John Lindell, rebuking Mark and kicking him off the stage, kicking him out of the conference. So I, being a fan of Mark's throughout the years, I could give you some context there. Maybe I will later on. But I've always loved the way that Mark has taught the Bible. I've always loved his brashness and his boldness. And I, being in Seattle, that I was a part of his church for a period of time. Andrew and I were a part of Mars Hill for a period of time. And the church, I understand, hurt a lot of people. But for us, the church was a wonderful blessing. And there's so much that I learned through Pastor Mark and through the various people that he would promote. And I was introduced to so many amazing kind of ministries through that ministry. And people say, well, Mars Hill had all these issues. Well, sure, right? We're in a study right now of the 7 churches in Revelation, as is Mark, apparently. And this is why my phone was blowing up. Sunday night is when I preached on Revelation 2 and the letter from Jesus to the church in Thyatira, where Jesus is confronting the church in Thyatira about them tolerating the spirit of Jezebel. So here I spoke on Sunday night on this topic and at Eden, Newcastle the week prior, and then all of this was taking place. So of course, watched the video, was quite intrigued by I found myself applauding, Pastor Mark and his boldness to confront this whole sexual charade. And then of course everybody was on TikTok and Instagram. Everybody had comments, and I said, well, why would I make any comments on this? I don't need to make any sort of comments. And so I just listened to everybody's comments. And then throughout the day, other videos were coming out and other aspects of the situation were coming out. And then at a certain point, I started to get a little skeptical about this whole church circus as it unfolded. So today I went to Mark Driscoll's Instagram to see if he had made a public statement on this, because now you've got Newsweek that's released an article. You got USA Today. Man, this thing is it's everywhere. Everybody wants to talk to me about, Mark Driscoll confronting the spirit of Jezebel and getting kicked off the stage there. And wow, And so I'm making some statements today, which I wasn't going to do yesterday, but because of concerns that I have about how people are processing through this, because I think we're actually processing through it incorrectly. And so if nothing else, even if just our Eden Church family sees this, or just friends, family, those that we're influencing within our stream, even if just you see this, I'm happy with that. My concern is that here you have people that are done with the church, and they hate the church. They got hurt by the church, and they're looking at this whole debacle, saying, "See, I knew it. The church is a train wreck." That is exactly why I left the church. Okay, the church is a zoo. Okay, and then you have people that are in the church. Okay, and they love the church, and they have a heart for the church, and they're looking at this whole thing, and they feel hurt, confused, conflicted, but they've got all this conservative angst and this feeds that angst of, yeah, come on, let's go, and this idea that the spirit of Jezebel is anything sexual. Okay, that anything, and that this is what we see in the church of Thyatira, and that the GLBTQ kind of agenda in and of itself is Jezebel. Okay, within the context of Thyatira, which I think is it's a fascinating passage, and like I said, we just geeked out on this really for over 2 weeks, and it is such a relevant, such an appropriate text for us to be, like, we need to be studying. Yes, is God speaking? Absolutely. But then you've got this whole, what appears to be a publicity stunt that has unfurled itself across social media. And I don't believe it's rooted in truth. Okay. You see, Darren, that's quite the allegation that this is a publicity stunt. That's actually a lie. That's quite the allegation. Okay. Well, first of all, is it absolutely 100% a publicity stunt? I don't know. Okay. I can't prove that. I'm asking the question. I'm going to point out some points. I'm going to take you to some of the points in the book of Revelation, so that we can make sure that as we process through what I feel like is nonsense, that as we're processing through this, we're processing through it in a healthy, biblical way, where we can actually be built up in this instead of derailed and divided. Okay? All right. This men's conference, Stronger Men's Conference, what the whole thing appeared to be a bit of a circus. Okay? The whole thing is all about strong men. Okay? This whole thing was about, I don't know if you saw the clips from it, but you got monster trucks, okay? You got explosions, pyrotechnics, right? Rock music. Like, this is a manly men's, okay? Men. Okay, this is a man conf. This is a men's conference, okay? And not just a men's conference. This is a strong man. Okay, it's literally about cage fighters and honestly, it looked like a lot of fun. Okay, I got friends that were there. They were posting while they were there. Okay, the conference looked amazing. Okay, it looked like a circus for 13-year-olds. Okay, I didn't see, like, I went to a monster truck show in Seattle years ago at the Tacoma Dome, and they had this dragon, this robot dragon that was, so I didn't see Robo Dragon there, but he should have been. Okay, this was just this huge, crazy, like, big budget, okay, Jerry Bruckheimer production conference, okay. And in the midst of that, right, you've got this ripped guy that comes out, okay. He does take off his shirt. He swallows a sword. He climbs up a 1,000-foot pole, okay. And I was like, wow, here's a guy, right, with a sword in his body, climbing this, okay. And this guy's got a checkered past. I get it, right? I'm not justifying what this guy does for a living, okay. Apparently he has a bit of a inappropriate lifestyle, okay, when he's not at Christian men's conferences, right? So I'm not justifying that. At the same time, it's not exactly Magic Mike up there, okay? I don't know if you've actually seen the performance or if y'all have just been, like, sharing and making something go viral that you didn't even see. But as a straight man, right? Like, I didn't see anything erotic there, okay? Like, there's a big difference between taking your kids to the circus and taking your kids to the strip club. And I would imagine if this had actually been a striptease, if this had actually been a male stripper, doing his thing, okay? I won't do any example, okay, doing his thing. that the majority of the guys there would have left, okay? Probably, they would have booed, okay, and they would have left. And that isn't what happened, okay? People didn't leave. And I don't think it was because they were so seduced by his witchy sexual, his Asher pole. I don't think that they were so seduced by his magic that all these manly men. Think about this for a second. a whole arena filled with manly men, okay, and their whole jam is MMA and monster trucks, okay? Are they really going to sit there with a gay male stripper, trying to trying to do the deal? I don't think so. So what I saw, it was a circus act. Yeah, if you're a man wrestling with same-sex attraction, if you're like into dudes, could you have been aroused? Yeah, sure, maybe. Okay, but if we're honest, if you've got sexual issues, just about anything can arouse you, okay? All right, so now listen to me. This is not me like vouching for this guy. This is not me, was it the wisest thing for them? No, but was it a circus act at a circus conference? Yeah, absolutely, okay? And that's also why that's why there was no outrage, okay? The whole thing was built off of hype. The whole conference is hype, right? So you just got one more element of hype. Again, the narrative right now is here you have this striptease, and here you have all of these bewitched men that just sat there and were like, imagine being one of the guys at this thing, right? And you didn't think anything about it. And then all of a sudden, all this controversy breaks up. And now you got to explain to your wife why you sat there in the chair and watched this whole thing. And you're like, really, honey? I swear it wasn't a striptease. I swear it seemed fine to me. And then, having your wife being like, well, I'm with Driscoll on this one, you pervert, right? Oh my gosh. Imagine, and then I've seen these men on social, and they're like, and they're like, they're pale as a ghost, and they're like, I don't know, just sit there. And I thought it seemed a little strange, but I didn't know I was being seduced, okay, by the spirit of Jezebel. So again, I saw all these ministers online yesterday saying, look at the state of the church, strippers on poles in the church. And man, I just don't think that's what this was. All right. And then you come to Pastor Mark, who gets up and is like, listen, he gets down on a knee and he says, I don't, I've got the video here in case you haven't seen it, but he gets on a knee and he says, my voice is hoarse because I was up all night last night praying for you, jacked up men who think you're straight.
Mark came here back in 2008.
Oh, I'm going to show you that one later. That's not the one I meant to show. Let's watch this one.
Male or female, because they're not.
I'm going to fast forward.
I've been up since 1 o'clock in the morning. The reason I'm hoarse is I have been praying for you, and my heart is very burdened for you. And I want to be very careful with this, and it's not what I want to say, but the Jezebel spirit has already been here. The Jezebel spirit opened our event. This is a rebuke and a correction to no one. This is an observation. Before the Word of God was open, there was a platform. It was a high place. On it was a pole, an asher. The same thing that's used in the strip club for women who have the Jezebel spirit to seduce men.
All right. So most of you guys saw the clip, but what he says right off the bat is this is not a correction or a rebuke of anyone. But then he says, but then he corrects and rebukes everyone. So he says this is not a correction or rebuke. It was absolutely a massive correction and a massive rebuke. Okay, and he says you have tolerated the spirit of Jezebel. At which point, at the end of the clip, the pastor John Lindell rebukes him by screaming out from the audience, "You're done, Mark. Get off the stage."
And then he swallowed a sword, and Jesus cried, okay, Pastor John, I'll receive that. Thank you.
At which point, people start leaving. People start emptying the place. People are booing. And the headlines start coming out. And everybody's saying, pastor just got kicked off the stage. That's the point that I saw this. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going down. Mark, all right, my man, way to, right? But here's what a lot of people don't realize. Mark says in the session, okay, I'm probably not going to be invited back. He goes, for my next session. He's supposed to do a session on Elijah, okay? And he goes, he goes, I'm not going to rebuke, okay, you. This isn't a rebuke. This isn't correction. And yet he had just said, I'm probably not going to be invited back to my next session because of the rebuke and the correction that I'm about to bring. So Mark knows exactly what he's about to do. And he also realizes that this is unprecedented. He's one of the smartest pastors in the deal, man, okay? Dude's a brilliant man. He knows exactly what he's about to do, and he does correct and he does rebuke, and then he gets corrected and rebuked by the host pastor of this situation. He gets booed off the stage. We think that's the end of the story, right? But that's not the end of the story. Mark was invited back. Mark did the next session on Elijah. He was invited by Pastor John to do the next session. So Pastor Mark he comes out on the stage, and Pastor Mark apologizes to everybody for what he just did. And this is what this is on social. It's not what's being talked about. What's being talked about is here you have a sexual striptease where all these guys just put up with it, okay? And here you have the LGBTQ agenda that's been embraced by a whole arena full of men. Is that what happened? No, I don't think that's what happened, okay? I think that this Pastor John guy is probably a pretty good guy, a Bible-believing guy. Mark and this pastor, they've got a foundation of trust. They've been through some things together. That's not being talked about. You're saying Pastor Mark apologized? Yeah, he came back out and he apologized, and he was asked to do his follow-up session.
Mark came here back in 2008. You were riding the high levels of Christians, have been friends through the years. When there was trouble at Mars Hill, Debbie and I sat on our couch in our family room and wept.
And you guys have been some of the greatest friends to me and my family through the hardest seasons of our life, and I thank you for being a good pastor and spiritual father.
I love this guy. I believe in this guy. Let me tell you what I said to my sons. Our generation. You're a gift to the kingdom. You're a gift to James River. You've been a gift to Debbie and I. You've helped us in things. You've been kind to my family, mentored my sons. And I love you. And I told Mark, listen, he says, I'll do whatever you want. I said, well, if you're willing, and we can come in and talk, and we'll let him talk to you in a moment. If you're willing, I want you to speak again. I want to find out about Elijah.
Respect and love and admire you as the father of this house. This is the greatest men's event, I believe, in the country right now. It's stayed pure for a long time. And I want to thank you for having such a great heart for men. And I want to thank you that it starts with your sons. And your sons are great, man. I love you and I love your sons. And when I was teaching, I just kept seeing that. And maybe it was the Lord, and maybe it's just me and I'm peculiar. No. We're not going to do division. What we're going to do is we're going to try and model how brothers can work through different divisions.
All right, and you guys can go online and watch the rest of the clip. And okay, what's that? It was beautiful. It was awesome. Okay, it was a wonderful moment where they reconciled and they did it publicly and they worked that out. Hey, listen, that makes the church look really good. That's not what's on social media. That's not what's being celebrated. What everybody wants to talk to me is how Pastor Mark rebuked the spirit of Jezebel and got kicked off the stage. All right. And here's the other thing that's very concerning is that the best part of this story isn't Mark getting kicked off the stage. The best part of this story is that reconciliation, them working things out. Okay. And the other thing is, if this had actually been like a full-blown striptease, okay, if this had actually been this erotic drama that took place there, that's what everybody is saying. That's what everybody is saying that took place. Do you really think that Mark would have gotten on that stage at all? Okay, I know I would. Like if I was at a conference and a male stripper came out and was like, I'd be like, nope, sorry, nope, I'm not gonna be speaking at this conference at all. And then I'd be going live like I am now and be like, hey, listen, you thought I was supposed to speak at this conference? No, I'm not. Because the conference is gay, right? And I'm not going to do it, okay? And I don't mean that, I mean that in the literal, but that's not what happened, okay? And Pastor Mark did get on the stage because that narrative isn't true. He did do his message. He came back out on the stage, and if this had been this huge Magic Mike episode that took place on the stage, Mark would not have apologized, okay? He would have stood firm in what he said. So this huge thing that's taking place right now is not the truth, okay? Why? Because Mark apologized to the pastor, and he says, this is the greatest men's conference in the country right now. And if this is true, that Magic Mike is out there being erotic, Mark would not have said, this is the greatest men's conference in the country right now. He wouldn't have said that, all right? And now, here's what I'm concerned about. Neither Pastor Mark, okay, or Pastor John have given a public statement bringing the truth into the light, okay? If you were at the conference, you got resolution. You got some understanding. But in the greater church, there are these massive ripples of division and conservative angst that has been created by a lie. Okay, this is not the truth. That is not what happened. Okay, what people are saying what happened at the event did not happen. Okay, and the effects of this. Okay. From Pastor Mark's own words after being kicked off the stage, this is the greatest men's conference in the nation right now. They reconciled, okay? So here you have a circus. Here you have a circus act, okay? It leads into one of the biggest, what I would say appears to be one of the biggest publicity stunts that we've seen in our generation. And maybe I'm wrong. I could be completely wrong, okay? But if I was wrong, you would think that Pastor Mark would bring some resolution to the greater body of Christ and being like, hey, listen, the narrative on social media right now is not the truth. Here's the truth. I misread the situation. I overreacted. And you would think that Pastor Mark would make this right publicly in the same way, because everybody knows, anybody that does social media, they all know that only the act of controversy is going to be celebrated and captured and caught. Okay, and it was in light. He had all night to process through this. He had all night, and yet he was back on the stage moments later. Okay, I don't think this thing is as spontaneous as the way it's being presented, and I don't think it makes us look good as the church, okay? And what matters? The truth is what matters, okay? And so both these pastors, Pastor Mark and Pastor John, have a moral responsibility to the church and the world to make this right and to go public. And my only concern is that you've got Pastor Mark's teaching on the spirit of Jezebel and all that. This all works to bring publicity around that series. Problem is, man, you just can't build a ministry on lies, even if it works for you. You just can't, okay? And the truth really, really matters in an instant like this. By the way, okay, let's say that this was a Magic Mike episode at a men's conference that we thought was orthodox, and it turns out, okay, let's say that this is a striptease to men. Is this the spirit of Jezebel? Not within the context of the letter to the church in Thyatira, where the church has accepted into the fold a false prophetess, operating with the spirit of Jezebel. And the fruit of this is that the church has received what's called here the deep teachings of Satan, and it has led to sexual immorality, not just with this Jezebel minister, but with her disciples. So listen, this is out of context. Even if it was an actual striptease and everybody had been bewitched by this male stripper on this pole and the whole room is like, well, I don't even know what I'm watching. Even if that is what happened, is that the spirit of Jezebel? Not unless Pastor John then hired this guy to come onto his staff to be one of his teaching pastors and starts bringing forth some sort of Gnostic teaching. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh my goodness, man, Magic Mike has some of the most profound hidden knowledge that we have never heard before, the fruit of which, of course, is going to be sexual immorality. Any sort of teaching that is not centered in Christ, that is not centered in the Bible, is going to lead to the casting off of restraint. Okay? When we lose revelatory, true revelation perspective, we will cast off all restraint. Okay, and that's what you see in Thyatira, a church that is tolerating sexual immorality. Why? Because they're tolerating a minister, okay, a false prophetess, one that's been accepted by the church, and it's led to false teaching and sexual immorality. Okay, this is not the GLBTQ agenda. The world's going to be the world, okay? The world's going to do what the world does. To the church that takes in worldly values, I think that's probably Pastor Mark's point, to the church that takes in worldly values and to the church that becomes cultural. But at that point, you're not just Thyatira, you're also Sardis, because that was the sin in Sardis, was the church completely assimilated into the culture to the point that it was dead, no longer had faith, works, love, etc. Okay? So if you're going to be concerned with the spirit of Jezebel, you